Hi again, and welcome to the North American Regional Finals broadcast of the Ferrari Velas Esports Series. The racing up to this point in the season has been quite simply spectacular. And now our North American drivers are almost to that checkered flag, with just 2 races separating them for what they desire most: a seat at the table for the all-important grand final later this month. We have a packed program ahead for you guys, with action and entertainment for your viewing pleasure. And as always, to keep me company here in studio, I am delighted to welcome in your very own and my friend, Paul Jeffrey.
Hey, Amanda, good evening to you and good evening to everybody at home. I can't believe it. To echo your words, we're here at the regional final of what feels like a championship that's been running for mere moments. So excited to see what our North American drivers can do over the course of these next couple of races and who secures that magic ticket to get themselves into the grand finale. It's going to be a very, very exciting hour and a half or so ahead.
When we think of everything that is at stake here today, 3 drivers from the North American Series are going to be joining us right here in the Italian studio to duke it out for that final. But crazy to think we're already this far into the season, and with that in mind, I want to welcome in a very special guest to the studio. Please welcome Ferrari Driver Academy rising star, Laura Camps.
Hello.
Hi.
Laura, absolutely great to have you with us. Welcome to the esports studio here in Italy. It's been a while actually since we've had you in. You came in for the launch event for the series earlier this year. How are you? What have you been up to and what have you been doing since we last saw you?
Yeah, it was quite long ago. So far, I've been doing some few tests in the F4 and alongside some karting races, so I'd say I was pretty busy.
Well, Laura, when you think of the racing that we've seen so far in the North American Series, what do you think about all the action so far?
So for me as a European driver, it's unusual to see North American drivers participating in this series, so it's quite amazing. Also, the competition is very tight and it's quite interesting, and it's going to be really, really good racing.
Now, Laura, moving on to the Ferrari Driver Academy itself, which of course you're a part of, can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be involved in the Ferrari Driver Academy and what advantages that brings to you as a driver, an up-and-coming driver at that?
So it's quite an amazing experience because you get to know all the other drivers, you get to train inside the Ferrari factory, and it really helps you a lot in your physical, mental development as a driver, and it helps you grow as a professional driver, so it's, I'd say, amazing.
When you talk about that amazing experience, it's no secret what's at stake here in this grand final. The driver who wins this is not only going to get a position on the Scuderia Ferrari Velas Esports team, but also a spot on the Ferrari Driver Academy. When you think of that amount of pressure on one person, what recommendations do you have for these guys?
So I like to manage my pressure into not thinking a lot what it's going to be the end, like if you're going to be inside or not. It's more about the process you've been through, so quite of having fun, enjoying it a lot, because maybe it's the last time you're doing this, so just go in with everything you have and you'll be lucky, or you'll be the one chosen.
Well, Laura, I think we're going to need much more insight like that from you in the show, so please stay right there as we got more action coming with you.
And on that topic, we have another very special guest joining us, Nicklas Nielsen. Hello, welcome to the Ferrari Velas Esports Studios North American broadcast. And how are you?
Hello, and thank you very much. Very good, thank you.
Nicklas, it's great to see you again. This is the North American broadcast, and I know you've raced at one of the iconic tracks in the U.S., that being Indianapolis. Take me back through that experience and how exciting it was to be at such an iconic venue in the States.
I mean, it was awesome. It was my first time ever going to Indianapolis, and I mean, you kind of already expected something before going, and I mean, it was a great experience racing around that track, knowing what kind of other big championships are racing there as well is something which is pretty cool.
Is there a track in the U.S. that you would like to take your skills to?
I mean, I'm not the type that had one specific track that I like more than the others, but like I would really like to go to Watkins Glen for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but it seems like a wild track. So that's probably one of the places that I would really want to go.
So hi Nicklas, it's nice to see you again. So I've got a question because I'm also do both racing and sim, just to train before going to a test or a race. Do you think it's really useful to use the sim before racing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I try to use it as much as possible. I mean, it's obviously difficult always to make it fit in with my program, but like whenever I have time, especially if I don't know the track that I'm going to, it's always nice to have some experience before coming to a new track.
Well, Nicklas, superb stuff, and a massive thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today in the broadcast. And final question really from us is, do you have any words that you want to share with our North American drivers ahead of this regional final?
Yeah, I want to wish all of them best of luck, and I really hope they will enjoy. And I'm pretty sure everyone who will be watching will be enjoying it as well. So best of luck to all of you.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining us, Nicklas. Take care and best of luck in the rest of the season. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Well, those are very wise words from Nicklas Nielsen. And now that we're getting closer and closer to competition today, let's take a look at the race format of the regional finals. The Ferrari Velas Esports Series regional finals will be held across a brand new format. 2 races will take place on both simulations with 2 different tracks and cars. In North America, the first race will be on the Assetto Corsa at Laguna Seca with the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. The second race will be held on the Assetto Corsa Competizione platform at Watkins Glen with the Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo. The drivers will earn points for each race, and only the top 3 will proceed to the grand final in Italy. Well, now that we know what everyone has in store for them tonight, I'm going to take this opportunity to throw back to a video we recorded earlier where I had the special chance to grab a few quick words with the Scuderia Ferrari Formula 1 driver Carlos Sainz ahead of the action that we're going to have in just a few short minutes. Back with us for the second time this season on the Ferrari Velas Esports North American Series show, Carlos Sainz is joining us today. Carlos, how are you doing?
Hi Amanda, thanks. Yeah, I'm doing great. Just really looking forward to see how the North American drivers can do in these finals.
Well, it's hard to believe that we are already at those regional finals. And when you look at this being the very first season for North American drivers, have there been any surprises for our drivers' performance for you?
Oh, for sure. The fact that we expanded to North America has already brought a lot of new talent into place, and I think it's great to see so many people trying to get better and better every day, and actually how competitive it's getting.
Yeah, and we've been pleasantly surprised as well, especially when you consider that there is a trip to Italy on the line for these guys. So for these North American drivers in their first season to really hold their composure under these pressure situations, I think we've all been excited for what they've been able to pull off. But Carlos, I know you have a very busy schedule. It is always a pleasure when you stop by here to join us on the Ferrari Velas Esports Series North American show.
Thank you, Amanda. Have a great race, everyone. I'm sure that you're going to have some fun.
Well, there are some drivers that absolutely love this, and there are those drivers that absolutely hate it. But whatever it is unpredictable at best. So this time for your Ferrari 101, it's tips and tricks on weather, how to drive in the wet. Make sure to pay special attention to our YouTube channel for all the Ferrari 101 formats.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Ferrari 101 tips and tricks. Hello guys, I'm Kamil Pawłowski and welcome back. Today we will analyze the rain conditions. Racing in the rain is a whole different story. Racing line, braking points, and overall driving style needs to be adjusted depending on how much it is raining. The most tricky part is when it starts to rain when you least expect it. Be extra careful when it starts to rain and you're still on the slick tires. These conditions are actually even trickier than fully developed rain on the wet tires. When the rubber on the track gets wet, car can become unpredictable, snappy, and the tire pressure drops rapidly. When it's raining, it's advisable to increase traction control and ABS. And remember, we talked about it in the previous episode, so take a look. Regarding the traction control and ABS, it's most important to regain confidence and understand the car behavior to aim for a good lap times and consistency. It is recommended to set the traction control and ABS just a bit higher to reduce the risk of sliding and locking the tires. Be careful, adapt, and push. There are several settings in ACC that allow us to counteract bad weather, more or less violent, starting from type of tires and ending on detailed suspension changes and aero settings. So now, let's put it in the simulator and test it. As you can see, using an aggressive setup in the wet, although we have wet tires, is really difficult. We are losing the car a bit even in the straights because of the water puddles. It is too low, too stiff, and too aggressive, resulting in snappy, oversteery and dangerous behavior. It's quite unpredictable. Let's try a safe setup now. As you see, setup turns out to be more conservative, perfect for new drivers who need more control. It is clear that we maybe go just a bit slower compared to the aggressive setup, but the car is easier to control, more stable and predictable. At least we can finish the lap and grow up in the consistency. Let's try to go on the grass in the wet. The result is exactly what you have been thinking. The car will never stop except when it hits the wall or you just spin. So I just advise not touching the grass at all. We try to go on the curbs in the wet, and the reaction is that the car will easily lose control, so keep the steering wheel steady and be ready to react and counter steer when needed. We have seen what happens when it rains and how to react in case of need, especially if from nothing during a race it really starts to rain. Do some tests as soon as you have free time, because it could happen to deal with certain atmospheric conditions. These were my advices how to deal with the car in very tricky and unpredictable rain conditions. See you in the next episode.
Outstanding stuff. Thank you very much, Camille, for taking the time to put together the latest Ferrari 101 tips and tricks. And now we all know how to drive in wet conditions.
Well, Paul, we now know what the racing format is. As you just said, we know how to race in wet conditions. We've heard from Carlos Sainz. We've heard from Nicklas Nielsen. I think the only thing, and maybe most important thing, Les, who's racing tonight?
24 drivers will take part in the North American Regional Finals, and Brandon Hawkin is top of the list. From Canada, Pierre-Olivier Cloutier, and the United States of America, Christopher Sever, Eric Debon, Jonathan Hernmeyer, Ryan Woodrow, Brian Woodward, Alexander Jurovich, Gianluca Dorsey, Merrick Levac, Jeff Cohn, and Max Berman are our top 12, with Sebastian Duran, Aaron C., Ernest Garcia Acula, Matt Adams, Brian Sableski, Manuel Hernandez, Alu Gobe, Eri Riley, Ricardo Riviera, Yuri Maldonado, Uzi Tellez, and Andy Tripiano are the 24 drivers that will do battle over 2 races for the North American Regional Finals honours.
Thank you for that, Paul. As always, some very exciting names to line up on the grid in our 2 races tonight. But where exactly are these races taking place? Well, seeing as this is the North American Series, let's head to 2 iconic U.S. circuits for our drivers to do battle on. First up, the famed corners of the mighty Laguna Seca Raceway in California. Visually very distinct and offering up some exceptional racing opportunities, Laguna is as unique as it is popular. And seeing our field of North American drivers charging up the corkscrew is sure to be a sight worth holding on for. Then we'll head to upstate New York and the stunning Watkins Glen circuit. A classic track in the very truest sense of the word, the Glen is beloved by drivers from all different classes of racing. And as part of the Ferrari Velas Esports series tonight, the track should provide a very tough test on both skill and nerve from our aspiring esports hopefuls. On the call to cover all the action from these two iconic North American circuits is none other than our very own DJ Clark and Jesse Lee. Gentlemen, take it away.
Welcome everyone to Laguna Seca, home of the corkscrew, rainy curve, and some of the most historic battles in all of North American racing history. I am DJ Clark, joined here in the booth by Jesse Lee. And Jesse, I can't think of a better way to start off the regional finals than here at Laguna Seca.
An absolute fantastic race course to host the very first race of the North American Regional Finals. The entry list scrolling past the screen now. 24 drivers from the North American region who have all qualified their way into this particular series. My goodness, look at those names, DJ.
Yeah, looking at some names there like Brandon Hawken, Alu Gobi, plenty of big hitters coming into this race. For this race, we are obviously going to be on Assetto Corsa, driving that 488 GT3 Evo. And Jesse, here is a look at the grid, a short blast down into the Andretti hairpin, and overtaking around here is going to be at a premium, so I have got to think you want to have a good start here.
You certainly do, and that all starts with a run down into the Andretti hairpin. You and I both were at the race earlier in qualifying where it got very argy-bargy down into the hairpin. Will we see something like that here today? I think you might just see it. Look at this start, a fantastic grid. It's all leading up to this. Tensions are palpable.
Yes, indeed they are, as we keep our eyes focused on the lights, and here they come. 6 lights, and there goes the green. We are racing in Laguna Seca. Very, very rough start there for third place as they've been completely passed. But Brandon Hawken able to get a lightning start up at the front of the field. He'll be able to avoid any carnage going down now into turn 1. But there behind, Alu Gobi is going to be trying to close in the best she can, as she really is the one leading the rest of the pack.
Well, I think that was a quite horrible start for Maldonado, who just didn't get off the line, maybe caught unawares by the lights, I don't know. But either way, free-falling down through the field. Gobi with an excellent start. Hawking, like you said, did exactly what they needed to do and get an absolute clean run. You don't normally get that sort of thing around here, but an excellent start. Gobi now finds themselves under pressure for second. Oh, and it's contact. Gobi goes around.
And that was Matt Adams, contact there with Matt Adams that spent a loo right around, and that is going up and the rise up through the hill. Gotta think there that that's not going to be looked too favorably upon, as that looked like a little bit too aggressive of an attack there for Adams.
Yeah, absolutely, partner. That's not going to be looked on too fondly at all. I'm quite curious what they might decide on that particular incident. Seemed avoidable to me. The race does continue. Hawken enjoys a 2.3 second lead. That's massive, and it's still growing on Adams. Levesque in third place, trying to gain time up to P3. Keep in mind, they're all racing for championship points. It's the aggregate score out of the 2 races today. You want to start off really well here. Hernandez racing like their life depends on it, and it does in this series.
Yes, it certainly does, and a great move there by Woodrow to be able to send that move down into turn 11, get that done. That is an often passing move that you see, but now Hernandez has got a little bit more to worry about, as Rivera is going to chuck that Ferrari up into the inside, the 73, trying to get traction down to the inside of the Andretti hairpin. That's not going to play out. We jump you up a little further into the field. This is Merrick Levesque right now, trying to close down on Matt Adams up ahead of them. Remember, Adams having the contact on this very corner, turn 5, just a lap ago with Alu Gobi. And there you can see way off in the distance, Brandon Hawken already starting to stretch his advantage.
Yeah, I'm quite curious if Levesque saw what happened to Gobi there and knows that maybe something's coming Adams' way. Of course, there is sort of stewarding as such for this series. So what does Levesque do in this case? I would think you have to stay on it. You can't worry about what might be. You have to take it every lap as if it's tangible, because it is in this particular instance. Woodward, by the way, continuing to try and make haste for a top 5. You never know how precious just a handful of points will be when the dust settles on race number 2.
Very true, Jesse, and you need to be up in those top 3 to advance on into the finals here, so all of these drivers definitely pushing ahead. Woodward, though, continuing to try to get to the back of Severt there. Not going to be that easy, though. We mentioned it, just how difficult it really is to get a pass around here, even down the long front straightaway, going into the Andretti hairpin. Because of the nature of the corner, it's just very, very tricky to get side by side.
I thought that was very interesting. The last time through, Levesque and Bauman, 3rd and 4th place respectively, they ran 23s the last lap. In this pack that we're watching here, they all ran 24s and absolutely on top of each other. It's no small wonder. Look at them. They're all nose to tail.
Yeah, they are all nose to tail as we focus here on Chris Severt working his way through turn 5 and the climb up the hill, this tricky section of the track. And Severt almost gets it wrong, clipping over into the dirt there just a little bit. Very lucky that he didn't have any more damage to that car. But Woodward now is going to smell a little blood in the water. And indeed, Severt has to go defensive as they rise up the Rahal straight, going down into the corkscrew. Woodward looking for a little bit of a line, maybe a crossover. That's not going to play out. But Riley there behind starting to get interested in this battle as well.
I was just going to say, Severt had a unfortunate incident there. Luckily, they were able to keep it onto the racetrack. Going off here is a massive penalty. It's not a modern circuit with a lot of runoff room. In fact, there's absolutely the square root of 0 runoff room other than this turn right here, where that's literally all you have there. So not a lot of runoff room off the final turn either. But yeah, Severt made that little mistake. Woodward had a look, but had to get back in line through the corkscrew because Riley was absolutely coming. But look at this, not giving up. Riley looking down to the inside of the hairpin.
Erie Riley chucking it down there, gonna try to make it work around the inside, and it looks like there as he feeds himself out that indeed is going to be a pass done for Erie Riley, so bump that car up into P6, but this is a problem, big problem for Manuel Hernandez.
Hernandez has massive damage to the front of that car. The windscreen of that car is very much cracked as well. That had to have been an absolutely huge off, and you can very clearly see something amiss with the steering as well. That might be day done, or race 1 done at least for Manuel Hernandez.
Yeah, that's going to be some big problems, but here's Jordi Maldonado, who's just been passed by Rivera as they climb their way up the hill, but some pretty heavy damage there to Maldonado as well in the 77, and I dare I say there's going to be some more damage as he gets it all wrong coming up through turn 6.
A couple of other cars involved as well. The race did not start well for the driver of the 77, and I do say it's gone even more wrong here in the additional 6 minutes since that start. Yeah, a couple of mistakes, some cracks forming here, DJ. This track will chew you up and spit you out. I just got done saying that, and as if on cue, you just saw 2 instances right there.
Yeah, very much so. It is not an easy track. It is not a track for the faint-hearted as they go. Here is Erie Riley, remember, able to get that move done on Woodward down into the Andretti hairpin last time around. Erie going to be closing up ahead, trying to see what he can do. Here's Jordi Maldonado in a little bit of a battle, though that is Manuel Hernandez there to his outside. Jordi is going to be trying to hold him off here just a little bit. Maldonado trying to hold off DeBon right now as they run. Ooh, DeBon looking a little bit interesting. Hernandez coming into pit lane right now. Nothing playing out here, but definitely some damage to the front there of Jordi's number 77 Ferrari.
Do keep in mind as well, top 10 get championship points for the 2-race series here today. So you have to be inside the top 10 to score points. But, of course, other issues here for the car falling through the field. Was in 16th here. It's going to lose a bunch of spots. Is that number 18? Wonder what happened there.
I wonder if that was just a little bit of a run off wide there through that little bit of the infield section, turns 3 and 4, trying to gather it up. Back underneath him is Jurovic, and again, heavy contact coming through turn 6. Jurovic able to get the car pointed the straight way, but not without making contact with Z ahead of him.
That was probably not a fun ride in virtual reality. That is, of course, what's strapped to the gentleman's head right there is VR, and usually you want to avoid spinning. Oh, no, and it's gone wrong again. Something very bad wrong with the back end of that car.
Yeah, very wrong indeed, and that's going to be a big, big problem as he works his way down through Rainy Curve right now. At least able to gather up the car under him is Jurovic, but that is going to find him all the way down to 19th. Look at how squirrely that car is. There has got to be some kind of suspension damage. You do not see that sort of snap oversteer on a normal car.
Yeah, normally I would assume something wrong with the aero of that car, but I think you're absolutely spot on, partner. I think there is something mechanically wrong with the back end of that car. Still completely unsure how that would have happened, but they have come into the pit lane. Now they can repair. There's no mandatory stops or anything like this, so nobody else is expected to come in unless you have problems, but it's always nice to be able to have that out, to come in and patch up, because you never know. You got to get back out into the fray, DJ, because you just don't know what's going to happen to the rest of them. If it happened to you, it can happen to anybody.
Exactly, Jesse, and so you want to just get yourself out there, try to score as many points as possible, but we focus in on another battle a little further up in the field. Sievert right now trying to be able to close in on the back of Bauman. This gap only about 0.6 of a second as they come out of the final hairpin right there. Sievert not looking like he's really going to be able to get a run down to the Andretti hairpin unless he's super, super late on the binders, but this is really the stage of the race, Jesse, where pressure starts to come into it. The more pressure you can apply to the driver in front of you, the more you can fill their rear view mirrors here. That means that they are going to be more likely to make a mistake, and we've already seen what those mistakes can do here at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, it's good points, too. Fifth place pays about, 10 points or so. You get another position, you get another couple of points as well, up to 12. It's really good going into the second race. And you may recall a few laps ago, I mentioned that only Levesque and Bauman were in the 23s. Now that whole line of cars back to Woodrow are in the 23s. They're basically running identical times, and it just also helps that the majority of them are all in one line together. Bauman and Sievert get to racing. Maybe there's something that goes on. Riley Woodrow may be able to get through as well. Close quarter stuff here. It's a pressure cooker situation for sure.
Yeah, certainly is a pressure cooker, and one of those drivers just adding heat to the pressure cooker here is Marek Levesque, trying to close down on Matt Adams up ahead of him. This gap has been relatively the same since the drop of the green flag, only about 6/7 of a second there between the two of them. We jump back to that battle with Sievert right now, closing in on Bauman. That gap has come down to the tune of about 2.5 of a second here. You can see Sievert just lining everything up. That's a slower car that they're getting around. And with a 30-minute race here and a full 22-car grid, that could be something we start talking about over the course of the race, is what happens with a little bit of lap traffic.
Gobi has been down pit lane as it looks, and no, in fact, they are not. That was a car absolutely confused me there. Lou out on the racetrack, of course, had that unfortunate accident early into the race, but they're almost back in the points, DJ. Look at her go.
Well, it's just like you said earlier, Jesse, don't quit out of this race because you never know what can happen. Luke Gobi doing a good job, taking a little bit of a wide line there, coming through turn 3, now through turn 4. One of those drivers getting out of the way. I believe that was Duran that they had to get around. Here is Eric DeBon. Remember, we focused on this race a little bit earlier, how he was battling it out with Maldonado. Well, Aaron Telitz able to get by him as well. So that's going to be a little bit of the drivers here swapping themselves around.
Yeah, and of course, top 10, like I said, 4 points, and they're swapping points in some of these positions, but we focus back on the fight for what is effectively for third place. We have no idea what's going to happen to Adams. That could be a potential time penalty situation from the very early on contact that could promote Levesque up to P2, which technically would mean that Bauman, this car right here, would be in P3. And you want to talk about really good points. How about a podium in the start? That's setting yourself up for major success early. But still, I wonder what Levesque's strategy is right here. Do you go for it, trying to get by Adams? Do you expect a penalty? Did you see what happened? I don't know. I'm glad I'm here in the booth with you and not on the racetrack right now.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. There are so many multiple things that you can have to think about when you're behind the wheel of a car like that. But I'll tell you, one driver who's having to look in his rear view mirrors and do a lot of thinking about what's going on behind him, that is Max Bauman here that we ride on board with. Sievert really starting to put some pressure here to the back of this yellow number 31 machine as they climb their way up the hill. You can see him there in the VR. This is one of the reasons why I love being able to watch VR, is you can see him sighting that corner, turn 6, all the way up. Now over the blind crest that leads you into the corkscrew. There they come on down the corner, and these two have got to be a little bit careful. They don't want to get too involved in a scrap here because Erie Riley is in 6th place, ready to pick up the pieces, and that's really, really scary with such a quick driver like Erie Riley.
I love VR so much. AC does such a great job, and instead, of course, Competición as well does a fantastic job with VR. It just adds to the immersiveness, but unfortunately, Bauman is seeing Levesque leave them a little bit up in front of this field, and it was very close within half a second. It's more than a second now. They're all running pretty comparable lap times still, but Levesque able to somehow gap the cars behind him, but still, it is a log jam back here. Look at this, Erie Riley's perspective. Remember that excellent pass they made into the hairpin a little bit ago? They've caught all the way to the back of this field. What does a driver like Erie Riley do in this situation? You're the caboose on this train, but you might have the pace to pass all these cars.
Well, we're getting closer and closer to the halfway point here, so I think you've got to put on a little bit of the afterburners, as that was a slower car getting out of the way. I believe, once again, that was Duran getting out of the way for everybody in Erie, not waiting around whatsoever, chucking the car down to the inside of Turn 5, trying to get that move done if at all possible. We focus here on Tellez right now as they come down through the infield section into Turn 4. That's going to be DeBon there behind them.
Sure is. Tellez back down here in 15th place, and not exactly where I thought they would be, partner, if I'm honest, based on some of the strength we saw in the qualifying races, but in 15th nonetheless, still trying to get up into the points. DeBon behind, though, trying to further dash those plans, get themselves back inside the top 15 with about 16 minutes left to go. I said a moment ago, I don't envy the drivers. I do a little bit, if I'm honest. I would love to be out here in a race like this. It's the highest pressure that they've had all season long. Keep in mind, we took thousands of qualified drivers and took the fastest in the qualifying races, took the top 3 of all of those, got 24 after several sessions, and now the top 24 in North America doing battle for only 3 spots.
Exactly, and there you see one of those drivers locked in the heat of battle. That is Ricardo Rivera trying to get around Trupiano right up ahead of him. Tried to send a move there around the outside of the Andretti hairpin, but that wasn't going to play. Thought about a move there into Turn 5. That's a little bit of a gutsy place to try to get that move done. Ricardo, I think, a little bit frustrated he's not able to go, but here comes Sievert, maybe trying to make that move on Bauman. Erie Riley looking into the background as well. Sievert's going to be alongside as they go into the braking here for the corkscrew, but he's going to back out of it. Discretion proving the better part of valor. Better not to throw away all of the points you could get than gain a couple of 2 here.
That was pretty fantastic driving. I've seen that go very wrong in the past. All of these drivers able to keep the cars under them and also not make a mistake. Left the door open, did Sievert there a little bit, but Riley not interested in making an ill-advised move. He's going to have to see a little bit more daylight before he tries to make that happen there. I will say at this particular venture, Levesque is looking a lot in the mirror because Adams has driven away from him just a little bit out front, but still trying to figure out who the quickest is. I hate to say it, I don't think it's Bauman right now, but it doesn't matter. Doing an excellent job defending.
Well, that's one of the characteristics here at Laguna Seca. If you are a good defender, if you know how to make that Ferrari nice and wide, it can be a very, very difficult task to try to get that overtake done. And that's exactly what Chris Sievert here is running into as they go through the corners here. Now through Turn 5, rising up and over the hill. We take a look back as Sievert is having to play a little bit of chameleon here, looking ahead and looking behind, with Erie Riley really starting to close in. Although Riley gets it a little bit wrong there, coming through Turn 6, catching the grass, and that's going to buy Sievert some breathing room.
It sure does. Riley was absolutely digging off that corner. Thought they had it exactly right. Went a little bit too much over the curb. Lost them a little bit of momentum. That shakes your confidence, DJ, in a situation like this, in a race where it's all to play for. And now you see Sievert doing the exact opposite of that, getting closer to Bauman. That gives you nothing but confidence, knowing that you're quicker, knowing all you need is a little bit of daylight to make that move stick.
Yeah, just a little bit, and that's all that Sievert is hoping for here right now is, it looks like Woodward may have had a problem. Woodward dropping down through the field, but we now focus on Elu Gobi. Gobi trying to get that done on Rivera. This is crucial for Gobi to be able to get that move down into the corner as Sievert spins coming through the first corner.
Something's happened to Sievert here in a big way into the hairpin. We talked about it very early on. It was a contested corner back in the qualifying races, and it's done the very same here today as well. Contact unknown what happened to Chris Sievert, but he's certainly been sent to the back of the queue, so to speak. Riley up to P4, a little bit of contact there. Gobi getting physical with Rivera. That's worth a point. You don't have a choice at this stage.
Yeah, you desperately need those championship points here. But when we get into the second race, you want to try to take advantage as much as possible. And Alou knows it. That's why we're seeing that feistiness here out of the 11th place driver here with only 12 minutes to go at Laguna Seca, lining everything up. She's going to have to be a little bit patient here as they go through the next couple of corners. Not really an easy way to get on by. We can see a brave move down into the corkscrew, but it requires a lot of commitment to pull that off.
Yeah, I'll tell you something else too, DJ. That'll be noted in Rivera's mind as well, that Alou is not above making a little bit of contact, trying to force that little bit of daylight, that little bit of space that she needs. And Rivera's going to know that next time. I guarantee Rivera takes a different line down into turn one to keep that from happening.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. As we now focus a little farther up in the field, Max Baumann trying to close down on Erie Riley. Now, this has all really been set up as a result of that Chris Sievert spin. Looked like Baumann was a little bit better on the binders going down into the Andretti hairpin, but runs it a little bit wide on exit. That's going to kill his momentum ever so slightly, and indeed, the gap starts to expand upwards of about 0.5 of a second. Looking pretty consistent here at this point, but they've also got to know that Chris Sievert is directly behind them in this battle in 6th, and if they scrap or they make a mistake, Sievert will certainly be ready to pounce.
Erie Riley has done such a great job up until this point of driving that car. They had to come from outside the top 5. They find themselves in P4, and depending on what happens penalty-wise, that might be a podium spot. And I hate to judge without being able to actually see what happened, but based on the fact that Baumann and Sievert both lost spots, I have a feeling those two came together in the hairpin, and that's what allowed Erie Riley through.
Yeah, allows him on through. Let's see what can happen, though, as we follow Alou Gobi. Still not able to get that move done on Rivera, and now Maldonado starting to close in behind a little bit. This could be a little bit of a back and forth here. As there we see Yordi. This is just tantalizingly close for all of these drivers.
Baumann out of line there, taking a look, but, well, unfortunately is going to get passed by Sievert, and that move done very cleanly indeed as Max Baumann has fallen back to P6, still inside the point, still with a shot, but that car doesn't look to be handling quite as good as it was earlier in this race.
No, it really just doesn't look like it's held together. I wonder if there's a little bit of tire wear coming into it or exactly what it could be here for Baumann. We check back on Alou Gobi, though, going down into the Andretti hairpin. Very close once again. And a little bit of how you doing. A little bit of front to rear contact there for the 65 is Gobi not ready to wait around. And she has been able to move up into 10th place, so that is going to be a solitary point for her, courtesy of some incidents up ahead of them. That's with Woodward coming down pit lane.
Sure is, so it's already that. And I wondered about this just about a lap ago. Was that the lights flashing from Gobi? It absolutely is. The mind games are clearly at play here. But oh my goodness, Maldonado up the inside. He's going to get 2 for 1. Incredible move.
Great stuff there from Yordi Maldonado, as now Max Baumann has to worry about Woodrow from behind him. You can see the flames coming out of the back of the Ferrari as they downshift there. That black Ferrari trying to see what they can do. Here's Ricardo Rivera now finding himself in 10th place. Alou Gobi, the one who has to be on the charge here to be able to try to take a single solitary point in this championship. They all fly through Rainy Curve, now down into turn 10. Alou looking for a little bit of a tighter line off of the corner. What can the 65 do here? Looks down to the inside of turn 11, chucks it in, and muscles her way forward. Now it's going to be a little bit of a drag race down the front straightaway.
I think Gobi might have the inside track here just a little bit, but my goodness, she went up and over the curb. You're never advised to do that, but by the time you get through one and down into the hairpin, I think it's a done and dusted affair. Gobi, who spent about 15 seconds in the points, got passed by Maldonado, of course, and now has got that spot back finally as she continues her quest up through the field again. Maldonado and Gobi both had issues, but both trending in the right direction, getting something out of this race late. 8 minutes left to go. It's not over yet for them.
No, it certainly hasn't. And remember, we've seen drivers come down into pit lane looking at Garcia and Woodward, both of them in particular falling down through the field, and so there could be anything to happen. We give a little bit of love here, though, to our leader. We haven't seen much of him over the course of the running. Brandon Hawken just running a fantastic race at the front of the field, has a gap of 7.7 seconds over Matt Adams.
Just smooth, calm, collected, focused, dialed in. That's Brandon Hawken, if you ask me. Was on the pole position, didn't need to do anything fancy really. Got an excellent start. Other people stumbled, and that's pretty much the tail of the race. It's very comfortable, getting ready to be just about 8 seconds. In fact, there you have it right there. The gap continuing to widen, and what can you say about a driver like Hawken? Just will not be denied today, and barring some crazy turn of events today, I just think Hawken has this in the bag.
Yeah, I think he does as well. But one driver who's not out of the woods yet is Max Baumann, with Woodrow and Trupiano maybe starting to get a little bit interested there. Excuse me, Trupiano a little bit too far back there. There was a lapped car there. But now we watch Alu Gobi. She's got Maldonado in her sights, trying to be able to close in. Snappa oversteer there coming through turn 4, but able to keep it up and collect it underneath her.
I'm going to be honest, I thought Maldonado was quicker than all of them. Obviously, the earlier turn, actually this turn we're coming up to right now, that caused Maldonado to get 2 spots in one corner. So very rare around here. But I thought Maldonado was going to drive away. That hasn't been the case. Gobi's been able to keep it really close. Look at that. You can see it from the in-car cam. The flashing of the lights, the gamesmanship here. It's all to play for. The tactics coming out late. I love a driver that flashes the lights.
I do too. It's kind of one of those mental games that you can get into a little bit. And obviously here, running in the clear California sun, it's not like you're going to have that big of an effect, but that change in the car behind you in the rearview mirror, that can be just enough to get your eyes to linger over there to try to see what that change is. And that little fraction of a moment that when you take your eyes off the road, that can be the difference between a good corner and a perfect corner. And running good corners around here isn't going to be enough. You've got to be perfect the entire way through. Chris Sievert here, though, in 11th, continuing to try to run behind Erie Riley to close in the last 5.5 minutes of this race. They've got about a 2-second gap back to Max Baumann, which is going to be good because that means that Sievert can go on full attack and not really have to worry about too much coming from behind.
Yeah, Baumann's car, like we said, expected it was falling off a little bit. It certainly is. Sievert, though, has a really nice run. Has been putting in some really fantastic laps. Erie Riley, who's been in the conversation pretty much all day for a top 5 spot here, continues to be so, but now finds himself, remember when he was at the back of the train? He's at the front of the train right now. Chris Sievert trying to get back up there. I think he might be a little bit quicker, but as we have already seen demonstrated several times, just because you're quicker around here doesn't mean you're going to be able to make a pass. It's characteristic of this racetrack. Lends to really good defensive driving.
Yeah, it really, really does. If you just know how to position your car, you're going to be able to hold on to those positions pretty much guaranteed. Sievert here, though, just trying to close in on the back. He was a little bit faster on that last lap, and he's been able to cut the gap down to about 0.6 of a second. But Riley just needs to drive defensive here for another 4 minutes. That's all Erie's got to focus on to be able to take this home.
Well, final 4 minutes of the race. Gobi continuing their quest to gain more than a single solitary point. 9th place effectively doubles your points total versus 10th. You get 2 for 9th place, and that's what they're looking at. Maldonado holding steadfast in 9th place, but just looks to be a little bit slower. But it's the same thing we're talking about with Riley and Sievert, the same thing here with Maldonado and Gobi. Maldonado might not be quite as quick, but it doesn't really matter. They have the preferred position out front, but I still think both these fights are going to come down to the last lap.
Yeah, I think they are as well, although it does look like Gobi's been losing just a little bit off the back of Maldonado. Remember you said earlier that you thought Maldonado was going to be able to peel away. Well, it may have just been a couple of errant laps there for Yordi that pulled him back into the clutches here of Alu Gobi, but now Gobi just not really able to get that gap closed down. It just seems a little bit out of touching distance.
No, that's a good point, partner. Gobi's going to need to be a lot closer than that to even have a shot. Case in point, this right here, Chris Sievert all over the back of Riley, loses him a little bit on the corner. Lap cars in front of this group. And, well, we've seen it almost come into play a couple of times. Today, will it be here? Absolutely not. Giving the inside is the 36 and driving right on through. Doesn't want to be a part of any incidents here late in the race. Doesn't disrupt the battle between Riley and Sievert. My hat's off to you. Riley and Sievert, though, do continue this excellent battle. 2.5 minutes. If you're Chris Sievert, you're going to have to make a decision real quick.
Yeah, you are, and it's really a decision here. Do you settle for points or do you go for broke? That's what this comes down to. How do you want to play this? And I think for Chris Sievert here, if I were in his shoes, I would be content to stay where I am. 5th place is nothing to shake a stick at, but if there is that little bit of an opportunity over over Riley rather, you have to go for it.
By the way, I'm pretty sure, unless my eyes are failing me, I'm pretty sure I saw Bauman have a local yellow that they were responsible for. They lost an absolute ton of time. But moving back through the field, Maldonado, by the way, has not been just driving around the track at their own pace. They've been catching Trupiano up for 8th place now. 3-car battle for 8th.
Ooh, and Alou Gobi trying to send a move down into the corkscrew. That's not going to work out there for her, but she's certainly going to let Maldonado know that there is pressure to the back of that 77. And you're right, this is now a 3-car battle as we get ready to cross over the start-finish line. I believe 2 laps left to go for these drivers. Take a look on board here with Alou as they go down into that final corner, trying to get the traction down. These tires starting to scream out a little bit. Lap traffic going to play a little bit of an interesting factor here as they cross over the start-finish line.
Absolutely uninterested in dealing with this. Was the lap traffic, the smart and wise and the respectful sportsman-like condition you expect to have late in a race like this. A little bit wide was Trupiano, if I'm completely honest. Maldonado had a tiny little peek up the inside of the hairpin, but nothing doing. No space as Maldonado still trying to find a way to sneak down the inside. None of these drivers are going to give an inch in the final minute of the race like this.
No, they are not. And remember, every one of these positions within the top 10 pays different points. There comes a look for the 77 down to the inside of Trupiano. Little bit of contact there between the two, but Yordi not able to get it done. He is thankfully able to hold on to that 9th place position, but Alou Gobi, I think, is going to recognize a little bit of a chink in the armor here. Indeed, she's going to have a little bit of a look as they climb up the hill. Defensive move from Yordi Maldonado, cutting off that inside line there as they now go down through the corkscrew in 8th, 9th, and 10th, running line astern.
Maldonado had to take that line. They had to go down to the inside just in case Trupiano dipped off the exit of the track. So easy to do. I'm astonished we haven't seen more of that today. And, well, you just saw a little poof of dirt right there, case in point. But just in case he had to make that move, but unfortunately couldn't quite do it. Luckily, though, was able to get back in line. What can we say about Brandon Hawken today in race number 1? Calm, cool, collected, 9-second lead and a 2-second lead after lap number 1. Has not put a foot wrong. It has been, I won't call it easy because it isn't obviously, but it's looked very routine for Hawken.
Yeah, he has made this look like there is nothing that anybody else can do to be able to threaten this number 04 car, bringing it now down through the penultimate corner and up into that final hairpin is Hawken, trying to see what they can do. Something's happened to Riley, by the way. Riley diving down into pit lane, so that's not good there for Erie, but for Brandon Hawken, that's going to be of no mind as a win here in the first race for the North American Regional Finals.
Well, a little bit of a fist pump there from Brandon, and it's small wonder why. Race number 1 in the books, and you got maximum points. That's as good as it's ever going to get.
Yes, it is. Alou Gobi here looking like she's going to have to settle for 8th place as she was able to get the move done over Rivera and Trupiano, or over Trupiano rather, so very, very good stuff there for her. Here is Matt Adams, though, as he has crossed over the start-finish line. He is going to be pretty happy there. I got to think in P2, but again, maybe a little bit of a penalty coming down the pipe for him with some contact. Here is your 3rd place finisher, Merrick Levesque, who is going to round out your podium.
What a nice job from Levesque. I thought that Levesque faded halfway into that race. Keep in mind, they were all over the back of Adams for the first half of the race, but they sort of fell back 5 seconds or so off, but it didn't really matter. Fourth place on back was too busy fighting with each other to fight with Levesque, so Levesque's going to get a nice podium spot and take a boatload of points into the next round. Well, you know, Levesque would have been one of my top picks to win this whole thing, so still in the fight early. Again, anybody inside the top 5 right now must be feeling pretty good about their chances.
Yes, indeed. I do think they will as we watch here. Cloutier coming down through the final couple of corners and through Rainy Curve, coming down now into that penultimate corner. That's Damon directly up ahead of them. Cloutier here looking like they're going to come into pit lane, so that is going to be race done for Cloutier. What a race out on track here as we watch the last couple of drivers just finishing up their laps. There is your final finishing order, and it has been determined. Matt Adams given a penalty here, a 30-second time penalty, and that is going to demote him down into 5th place.
It sure is, and more importantly, it puts Levesque up in the P2. What a job that was from Sievert to gain all those spots back. Gets rewarded with a podium.
Yes, he does. And from the sunny shores of Monterey, California, we now transition to the upstate New York Finger Lakes region and head to Watkins Glen. Jesse, it was near impossible to get a pass on a Laguna Seca. Little bit different here at Watkins Glen. I think this one's going to be a draft battle, and this one's going to see a lot of side-by-side.
You're telling me, partner, there's almost not a particular corner on this racetrack you can't make a pass on or go too wide. I know some people will argue you can't go too wide in the bus stop. Watch them try. They'll absolutely try and get it done. What a fantastic racing circuit.
Exactly, and once again, driving that 488, this time the Challenge Evo on ACC, so a little bit of a different change here for our competitors. That's going to change things around a little bit. We've talked about the differences between those two cars. I dare say that this Challenge Evo tends to be a little bit trickier to drive.
It might be, but my goodness, you think you know what GT3 cars are, and you probably do. You have never experienced something like the Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo. This car will leave any GT3 in its dust in a straight line, and we're at the right track to show that off.
Yeah, we certainly are. As we look down the order here, a little bit of an ominous sign for competitors is Brandon Hawken once again on pole position, but Sievert up into P2. Levesque, Woodrow, great qualifying there for Alu Gobi in 5th place. Matt Adams only good enough for 6th. Maldonado, Riley, Cloutier, Rivera rounding out your top 10. That's really and truly kind of what we expect in that top 10, but I don't think I necessarily expected to see Matt Adams all the way down in 6th place.
No, absolutely not. Adams a little bit out of place here. Gobi back up where we would expect her to have been as well. And look who are our top 3 qualifying cars into the second and final race. Hawken, Sievert, and Levesque in the top 3 spots. They have a better than good chance of being the top 3 we see move on to the next round. What a fantastic day it has been for them, but still 30 minutes of racing left to go. You can't get too excited now. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Well, it's going to be a long 30 minutes.
Yes, it is, and we mentioned it earlier, but the draft train absolutely crucial around here, and getting the timing right coming out of the 90. You've got to absolutely nail that timing correctly, otherwise you could find yourself in a world of trouble trying to make that pass down into the inner loop. But that is what we have to worry about once racing starts. For right now, what drivers have to worry about is keeping their eyes on the lights up ahead of them, as well as trying to get everything right going down into that first corner, going down into the 90. It is very tricky. It's a wide corner, but contact often seen there. We hope to avoid any of that here today as we get through the back of the grid there with Jurovic and Heidemeyer, and we head out here on our parade lap.
A lot of nervous racing drivers. If you had a fantastic race number 1, you're maybe a little bit less nervous, or some might be a little bit more nervous knowing that you're playing with a lead, so to speak. And look at the beautiful aerial shots of Watkins Glen here in upstate New York. just a fantastic racing circuit. It's hosted so many fantastic series over the years. And, well, these cars, sort of an unknown quantity around this racetrack. The racetrack very new to ACC. The car also relatively new as well. This is going to be very entertaining, not only for the drivers, but for all of us here watching as well, as we're going to see something we've probably never seen before. These brilliant machines thundering down this straight at speeds higher than GT3 pace. And it's all about how you brake and when you brake down into the bus stop chicane. You're going to see more than a few moves made here today. Who's going to make the winning one? Who's going to make one that doesn't come off? DJ, I got butterflies.
I do too. I'll tell you, Jesse, this is one of my favorite circuits in all of North America, whether to drive or to spectate at. It is so fast, it is so flowing, and it's the definition of old school. Very little runoff for any of these drivers anywhere around the circuit. The signature baby blue Armco lines this entire track, so if you get things a little bit wrong, it's not like what we saw at Laguna Seca where you may run into the kitty litter and be able to gather it back up. You get something wrong here today, that's probably your race done and dusted.
No, that's a very good point. You run off at Laguna Seca, and yeah, you lose a ton of time because the sand and the dirt will slow you down quite heavily, in fact. I think we saw that happen on a few occasions. Here, though, that's not an option. If you go off here, you're going to go into that Armco, and that might not be day done, but it will certainly put a damper on your chances of going through.
Yeah, it certainly will, as everybody works their way now down through the boot section of the track, reeling it back and forth. Again, Christopher Sievert here in a great position to try to capitalize, moving his way up in the order after a pretty solid race one, a top 5 finish there for Sievert. Moving into race 2, he's going to hope to be able to maybe move on here. Also, Marek Levesque looking for a double podium on the day. Both of those drivers, I think, are ones that I have my eyes on.
Yeah, and for the folks at home, Hawken cleared the field in qualifying by a few tenths, but from Sievert, Levesque, and Woodrow, they all qualified within 1/10 of each other. Look for that group to do some heavy fighting here in the offing.
Yeah, some very heavy fighting as now they work their way out of the boot up through turn 9. I will argue one of the trickiest corners on this track as you try to get that right, getting the power on while the track flattens out on you. It can really throw you for a loop. But here we come into into double file order rather. Sievert and Hawken bringing this field to the green flag. They come through the final corner right now, getting everything stacked up under them. Sievert giving a lot of space there to Brandon Hawken as we wait for the green flag to fly and racing to get started. Everybody bringing their way onto the main straightaway. A little bit of a check up there in that outside lane. Eyes on the flag stand right now as we get ready to go green. And there goes the flag. Here we go down to the first corner. That's a great getaway for Sievert. He's going to try to keep it side by side between himself and Hawken, but not going to be able to pan out. Contact there in the back. A couple of cars almost spinning around. Now for sure spinning around. That's 3 cars off.
Several cars off in the exit of turn number 1. Sebastian Durian involved, as well as you see here. Everybody able to get going. A drive-through penalty issued to Bauman as well. That for being out of order on the start. You have to be in the correct position, and he was not. So a huge penalty and a day dampener for the car 31. But meanwhile, up front, they continue to race. I thought that was a brilliant move by Sievert, by the way. Must have saw Levesque and Gobi and all of them trying to get in line or maybe undercut them a little bit. And what did he do? He said, okay, I'm going to stop my fight with Hawking and get back in line before I get passed up through the S's.
Yeah, very heads-up stuff there as we follow Jordi Maldonado now in the 77, jumping back up to Marek Levesque. This battle for P1, it's not like in the first race here, Jesse. Brandon Hawken finding himself under a little bit of pressure here from Christopher Sievert as they come out of the heel and into the toe of the boot right now, especially with the reprofile here that happened a couple of years ago. This has become a more prime overtaking opportunity, but not seeing anybody going for the move there. These top 3 content to run single file here for now.
They certainly do. You talk about the reprofile, the camber in the track as well, and then you get spit back out into the short chute. and it's an eye-opener because the camber's really bad on that section of the racetrack, can really catch you out. Everybody navigating that incredibly well here on the opening lap of the race. But like you said, I saw that too. Sievert has not let Hawking get away. Very close stuff. Probably not what Hawking was expecting. Erie Riley back in the 16th place position. Just got a spot there in the last sector, but nearly ran off the racetrack there as well.
Yeah, nearly got off there, but it's going to be able to keep things together. Erie running around in 16th right now. Looks like Rivera almost had a little bit of a half-hearted look there on Heinemeyer as they went down into the 90. Up ahead of him, that's Saboleski, and Jurovic really duking it out, trying to see what it can do. Now it's going to be Riley, though, who's got a good run. We check back in on the top three. Merrick Levesque looks like he's closing it a little bit on the back of Sievert as they exit the inner loop, trying to see if he's going to be able to carry a little bit more momentum through the outer loop here, keeping the power down, keeping everything nice and together. A little bit of a gap starting to form between themselves and Alu Gobi, though, with Gobi back and forth having to hold off Woodrow.
Yeah, this is very interesting. It's the complete opposite of what we saw. We saw a very standard start at Laguna Seca. They got single file and they all spread out. We're not seeing that here at all. I think the racetrack lends itself. I think you said that best, partner, when we first started talking about Watkins Glen. It's a racetrack where you can get some drafting done and you stay in these very nice tight packs. Contact there. I thought it was going to be a late breaking move, and it has been.
It has indeed, and now that is going to be Jurovic up into 15th. Barely able to get that move done, but a good heads-up play there for him as he's going to try to be able to get onto the back of Erie Riley now as they run up the hill through turn 9. Alexander Jurovic trying to hold off from behind. That's Saboleski looking very interested in this battle as well, and this is what you see a lot of times here at Watkins Glen. Oh, bad run off of turn 9. Here comes Saboleski down into the penultimate corner. This is going to be tricky. That's a high-commitment corner, and Saboleski has to back out of it. But that's going to open up the door to Rivera now going into the final corner, and he's got it done.
That's exactly what I was talking about just a lap ago about the camber of the previous corner, and then you get such bad camber spitting back out onto the short chute there. That's such a big problem. It can catch you very much unawares. Jurovic almost ran out of space. There's only a curb and a small few millimeters to the wall, and you can smack the rear end of the car on that wall. Didn't quite get there, but log jammed the cars in behind him, somehow able to use the momentum around the penultimate corner to stay in that position. But for how long? Looking around the outside is Rivera, thinking about making a move. They're going to be side by side. Who's going to give down into the chicane? And it will be Rivera there. A very smart move. Maybe a little bit of contact. Rivera goes spinning into the chicane.
And that was front-to-rear contact there between Rivera and Saboleski. I don't think Saboleski nearly expected that checkup from Ricardo Rivera. And so Rivera's now going to find himself down into 17th place. Duran behind him that he's going to have to try to catch back up on and grow a gap to. Saboleski, that white car directly up in front. You can actually see some of the damage there on the front of that machine. Meanwhile, Matt Adams, your second-place finisher, demoted down into 5th in the last race. He's trying to move his way forward a little bit, trying to get by Jordi Maldonado right now, looking for a little bit of a crossover. That's not going to play out. Trupiano only about 0.5 of a second behind them. You can see the dabbing of the brakes here coming up through turn 9, trying to keep everything nice and together. Matt Adams looking for that opportunity to be able to get by Maldonado.
Matt Adams trying to find a lane, just a little bit of something. You know, you can set a driver up into turn 1. Some people think I'm crazy. I say that your move down into the bus stop is actually set up into turn 1. And yeah, I know there's 2 or 3 corners in between there and there, but really, that's where you set it up. You need a really good run out of 1, just like you would any corner after or right before a long straightaway, I should say. Matt Adams not getting the better run. Very clearly Maldonado getting a fantastic run, but cutting down to the inside of the S's here might be just close enough to get that really nice draft effect, and Maldonado had to get out of it there or either risk hitting the wall, and that's brought Adams back into this. Which way is Adams going to go? Middle of the track for Maldonado. Going down to the inside is Adams. Who's going to be the last of the late breakers? Maldonado is going to give first. It's going to be Adams through. Are they able to keep it onto the racetrack? Yes, they are. Pass done by Matt Adams. What a brilliant job.
X-book stuff there from Matt Adams. Really heads up, just full commitment going down into the corner and able to pull it off. We focus now on Brian Woodward running around in 12th place right now. That is Hernandez up ahead of him in the white Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo as he tries to work his way through. A little bit of a wider line there for Brian Woodward, maybe trying to diamond off the corner just a little bit more, carry a little bit more momentum on corner exit. Didn't look like that worked out there for him as now they come into the heel of the boot, or the toe of the boot rather, working their way up, and it just looks like there for 2 corners in a row. Woodward maybe struggling with a little bit of front end grip, not really able to get the car down to the apex.
Yeah, and Hernandez will know that certainly. Okay, well, they struggle through there, and I don't. So that's a great place to make a little bit of a gap, and this gap is what I would call safe. There's never really a gap as a racing driver you think is safe, but I promise you that is. This isn't, though. Rivera looking back down to the inside. A very damaged car from Duran, if I may say so myself. They'll go 2 wide as they'll rejoin the short course of the racetrack, but a damaged car doesn't seem to make a matter. But oh my goodness, incredibly wide there, and getting through is Ricardo Rivera, P16, as they're charging back up through the field a little bit. A little bit of a slide right there, DJ. Are the tires giving up a little bit, I wonder?
They could be. I mean, this is a pretty high tire attrition track. There's so many medium to high-speed corners here that there's a lot of load being put into the tires. So we could see some drivers maybe just overheating them. I think at this point in the race, tire wear may not be the issue, but certainly overheating can be a big problem. But Jordi Maldonado doesn't look like he's struggling all that much here as he's got Matt Adams up ahead of him. Remember, Adams able to send that move down into the bus stop on the last lap. Now Maldonado holding on to the back here of that number 45, seeing if he's going to be able to maybe pull himself back up through the field.
Sure is. And you know, part of being a good commentator is seeing the trends, and I'm seeing one right now. Hawken is leaving Sievert just a little bit, 2.1 seconds the gap, but Levesque all over the back of Sievert, and Gobi, by the way, is coming as well to the party. This is going to be a big old fight for P2 in a lap or so.
Yeah, it's going to be a big fight indeed as here comes Gobi, only about a second separating her from Levesque. But there is Max Baumann trying to close in on the back of Trupiano up ahead of him. This is that battle just directly behind the fight between Matt Adams and Maldonado. So a lot of this field starting to look like they're breaking out into couplets here. Just two-person battles as they go.
Yeah, it does look like that, and that's something you get. That's a product of this racing around here where you get a nice big draft. Is you typically get paired off in fights. Sometimes you see triplets and stuff like that, but you will see that a lot here. And sometimes, too, it's to your detriment, too. If you get stuck behind one of these cars for too long, you really don't have much hope of catching up. But I've been proven wrong here a little bit today. We saw Maldonado do the exact same thing. Baumann, of course, trying to come through the field just a little bit as well, already in the points. But if they want to move on at this point, based on their prior finish, they know they've got to get a little bit closer to the front. And that starts all here with passing Trupiano for ninth.
Yes, it does. And thankfully, Trupiano does have about a 3-second gap up to Maldonado, so he's not going to get the benefit of the draft there necessarily, but he's still able to position the car well, and it looks like Trupiano doing a really good job to carry as much speed as possible there through the bus stop. 10 minutes down in this race, 20 minutes left to go for the Ferrari North American Regional Finals here as we continue to watch this fight between Max Baumann and Trupiano right up ahead of him. Nothing really starting to fire off here. Baumann just trying to reel in ever so slightly.
Certainly is, and right up in front of this battle, in fact, is Cloutier, Adams, and Maldonado, who have all formed as well. We got a battle for P2. There's a battle for what is effectively P6 as well. All of those very precious points, and of course the battle for P9 as well. It's all kicking off here. Final 20 minutes here in the regional finals. Every point so very valuable because you don't know what exactly everyone else is doing, but you really don't care. What you have to focus on is what you can do in your race and worry about everything else a little bit later. That's exactly what Hawken is doing. Sievert, though, doesn't have that luxury. Merrick Levesque is there, and so is Alou Gobi.
Yeah, Gobi really been able to catch up to the back. Almost a little bit of contact there between Alou and Marek Levesque as they went down into the 90. But a good check up there from Alou Gobi to be able to hold that car at bay and not make any front-to-rear contact there for her. Now they fly their way up through the S's. The draft really starting to take effect here as they run. Maybe a little bit of a close from Marek Levesque on Chris Sievert, who continues to run in P2 in that yellow number 11 Ferrari. They now dive their way down into the inner loop. I'm not seeing any massive closing speed as they go. Take a look on board here with Alou Gobi. Maybe a little bit of a twitch of oversteer there coming out of the bus stop into the outer loop, but she's able to keep everything nice together. Losing a little bit of time, it has to be said, to Levesque, but still within touching distance.
Yeah, and I know some people watching at home are probably thinking, well, isn't this gap a little bit of a problem? You're seeing a gap emerge, not around here. A lot of other courses, you want to stay as close as possible. It really doesn't matter too much around here. You're all going to be pulled back together with relative speed, and all these cars obviously have relative speed to one another, so it's not that big of a deal. Gobi is not going to be panicking at all. She's calm, cool, collected behind the wheel of that car, knows certainly at least that they have speed over Sievert in second place. Probably doesn't know about Levesque. Levesque is the unknown quantity here, of course, because Levesque has been stuck behind Sievert, but Gobi, who was nearly 2 seconds back at one point, has caught them all up, so not really panicking here. Looking good to go through a couple of these drivers. Got to keep it very chill here in the middle part of this race. Maybe willing to give up a spot or two to maybe preserve your top 3 finish in this series. What do you think, DJ?
Well, I think the other thing that Alou may be doing here a little bit is you saw her inputs into the steering wheel, and it looked very light. It looked like she was really being a little bit tentative putting in those adjustments. She's not overdriving the car. I wonder if she's focused here a little bit on trying to preserve those tires, maybe keep some heat out of the rears in particular, as a way to be able to go into full attack mode here, maybe with about 5 to 10 minutes left to go in this race. That seems to me like it could be a good strategy here for Alou. As we've already talked about, this is a tire churner of a track. It'll really, really wear and overheat those tires. The left rear in particular taking a big beating around here.
You know, I hadn't really noticed that, DJ, till you said that, but Gobi is not taking the curbs quite like Sievert and Levesque are doing currently, and I wonder, you might be right about that. Maybe she's biding her time, trying to have better stuff, not use her stuff up until the end of the race. That is a champion-style move right there, and who knows, it could pay big dividends here in about 15 minutes' time, because you know Sievert and Levesque are not holding back right now. I can tell, looking through the windscreen of Levesque, that Sievert is driving the wheels off of that car to try and get a little bit of a gap, stay just far enough in front of Levesque that the move cannot happen. Gobi, I think you might be right, partner. I don't think she's doing that.
I don't think she is either. It just seems like a much calmer approach. And even there, as you look in that rear view camera, her line, it was a more sweeping line coming through turn 9. Now watch them here as they come down. Big clobber at the curbs there for Sievert. And that's a little bit of what you were talking about there, Jesse, that Sievert is really driving that car hard. You can see by just how far he is pushing to the absolute limits of the track, really clobbering the curbs, really pushing for everything that he is worth. Now let's watch through the 90 here. This will be a key indicator. Good. Sievert looked like he missed the apex there a little bit, and you notice that little bit of a twitch coming off of the corner. That means that he may have just gotten under the power over those curbs a little bit rough, and he had to catch the car ever so slightly. So a little bit of driving hard there for him. Gobi's starting to fall off the back just a little bit, but if our theory is correct, she'll have more stuff wound in. Ooh, maybe a little bit of a half-hearted move there for Marek Levesque. I think that was maybe just as a way to try to get into the head there of Chris Sievert.
Yeah, I suspect Gobi doesn't really care if she falls off a little bit because she's still within that window of being able to catch up and in the draft, so to speak, so it's not really a big deal. It might also be beneficial to not follow somebody too closely, of course, and not scrub your tires off too much. But Sievert clearly is having something going on, and you can read this any particular way. Hawking out front by 4.5 seconds there or thereabout, and that gap has ballooned in the last couple of laps, and you could argue that Levesque putting pressure on the back of Sievert's causing that, and I would probably agree with you, but I also think Sievert's used up his stuff a little bit, trying to keep to the back of Hawking. Remember, Hawking fired off in race number 1 and had a several second gap at the end of the first couple of laps. That wasn't the case here. I think Sievert was trying to keep pace and now is paying for it.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. As we check out another little battle here, Jordi Maldonado with the move down into turn 8, completely overcooked it there, and that is going to be able to keep Cloutier ahead of him, but my goodness gracious, that was as late can be.
And all credit to Cloutier there. That was fantastic driving. Felt a disturbance in the force, so to speak, and went, I'm not going to turn into this corner. Maldonado's coming, and absolutely was. Good idea by Maldonado. Just a little bit late on the brakes for that move to come off, and I use a little bit, sparingly. But a move there, ill-fated. Cloutier, no contact. Cloutier back out in front. Maldonado will just have to try it again.
Yes, he will, and I'll tell you who may not have to wait all that long, and that is Marek Levesque, who is all of the back here of Chris Sievert. Even had a look down into the 90, but backs off a little bit, I think, coming up through the S's. That's going to allow for Alou Gobi to catch up to the back of this battle. Now, if Alou has been staving her stuff here, this may be the opportunity for that number 65 to go on the attack.
Sideways.
Wow, that was close.
Chris Sievert almost lost it coming out of the bus stop completely sideways. I was just going to comment, partner, that all three of those drivers had different methods of getting into the bus stop, and I think Sievert just about ruined his chances of competing for this series.
Almost did, but he is not out of the woods yet, as that is Levesque taking the overtaking line, I like to call it, going down through the toe of the boot, really taking a late apex there to get on the throttle as early as possible. Sometimes it works wonders there, but a good defense from Sievert, blocking the car at the apex, preventing that over-under. A little bit of a twitch under braking there again for Sievert. You can see just how much wheel he is having to put into that car, really trying to hold it together. Now let's see how he is on throttle here coming up through turn 9. Big snap of oversteer, counter correction to get that car going. The number 11 here driving the wheels off of that Ferrari Challenge Evo.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You can see what the hands are doing. A normal race pace, you'd be pretty smooth on the wheel. Obviously, nothing normal about this. Under threat for P2. Chris Sievert can't give this spot up. Look at this, it's a move down into turn 1. My goodness, something's gone wrong with Christopher Sievert's car. He's dropped 2 spots on the straightaway, look.
I wonder if there was a little bit of contact maybe made with the outside wall there coming out of the final corner. That's really the only explanation that I can see for him bleeding that much time. Sievert finding himself in second, now all the way down in 4th.
What on earth happened on the straight that time? Oh, a little bit of a snap there as well. Something clearly amiss with that car, and that has promoted Levesque up into P2. Alou Gobi up to P3. Now what does she do with 11 minutes to go? Clearly, I mean, I asked that. It's rhetorical, of course. You have to contest P2.
Yeah, you have to go for it because remember, Alou Gobi didn't have that good of a scoring in the first race, so she needs absolutely every single position that she can be able to take away here. So she has got to be in full attack mode here at this point in the race. If you've been saving your stuff, now is the time to start using it.
Well, this is an interesting situation. We know Hawken looks good for the double win today, but won't quite give him the trophy just yet. Levesque in P2 also looks good. Gobi, like you just said, had their share of issues in race number 1, but is not out of it after scoring points. This still could be on par for them. How big was that slide down the field for Sievert? Will that knock him out of a transfer spot? I'm not quite sure right now, but I was just going to remark how interesting it is that Levesque and Gobi are fighting each other on the racetrack, but they're not really for the standings. Gobi might end up being that third driver, but they really don't have any sort of way to get by Levesque in the championship points, I don't think. So really, 2 drivers racing each other on the racetrack, but not in the championship points. Their outlook very, very different. Sievert, though, they're the big, interesting question mark in this. Can they make that third transfer spot? Oh, my goodness. Pressure cooker situation, folks. Final 10 minutes.
Here we go as we now focus on Ryan Woodrow with Chris Sievert losing another position there, falling all the way back down into 5th place. The number 15 able to get himself on by. This is very interesting indeed.
Sievert very nearly knocked down the wall at the top of the S's right there. That car, I think that's exactly what happened. I think they were chasing Hawking a little bit too hard. The tires have been run off that car, and Sievert really can't back off. You can sort of back off a little bit and cool the tires down, but I don't really think you can do that in this situation. Woodrow got a little sideways right there, gave Sievert a thought of taking a look down the inside. Nothing doing, though.
No, nothing doing at all, as now they come their way out of the final corners there of the normal circuit down into the boot itself. Sievert looks like he's got the pace to maybe be able to keep up here a little bit with Woodrow. I'm really starting to suspect that he has just overcooked his tires here, Jesse, and that is the problem. Is it looks like he's still got the aggression, but we were talking about just how he was almost overdriving the car, and I think that came back to bite him, and the tires just giving up here at this point.
Well, if I was Chris Sievert, I would desperately be trying to do the math in my head right now of where we are in the championship, where we are in the points, and determine if they need to make this pass or not, what they need to do, because that car seems to be fading, and the more he pushes that car to get by Woodrow, the worse it could get. And you don't want to let Matt Adams, who is 4.5 seconds behind you, catch all the way back up and then get in a battle with Cloutier and etc. You don't want to do that. So hopefully him or somebody near him can help him do a little bit of math and figure out where he needs to be. I think, if my math is correct, top 5 might just do it. But again, 7.5 or so minutes left. There's a lot of racing left to go.
Yeah, there's plenty of racing left to go, and no one knows that better than Marek Levesque.
Certainly the case. Levesque trying to do all they can to keep Gobi behind. Again, not really racing each other for points. Gobi's trying to do the upset here in race number 2 with a podium, maybe a P2, and get themselves in. Levesque knows that pretty much no matter what, that Hawking and Levesque, if they can continue their fantastic pace here of double podium, that they're going to be through regardless. So my question to you, DJ, is how hard does Levesque fight Gobi for P2, knowing that realistically it means more to her than him?
I think if Gobi tries to send a big move here, Marek Levesque does not attempt to block her at all. It's just a matter at this point of keeping an eye on those points. The one driver, though, who does need to be in full attack, I think, is Chris Sievert. Those points at bay. Ryan Woodrow trying to hold him off for now, but certainly for Chris Sievert, he has got to try to move as hard as he can up forward and not lose another position.
No, absolutely not. I was wondering about what you would think about Sievert as well. Does Sievert try to pass Woodrow? I think for safety reasons, I think Sievert will try to do that, simply because Sievert must know, even by doing basic maths, rough maths, if you will, in your head, that Sievert must know that if he gets back to P4, he's probably also going to go through. But right now, P5, it's all up in the air. It's out of his hands. But again, it goes back to using up your stuff. Matt Adams is catching this group here. It was 4.4 something a lap ago. It's 3.7. I agree with you now. Sievert has to make the move. Maldonado trying to make the move as well, and Cloutier for 7th.
Yeah, here we go. Maldonado, good run there out of the 90, closing in on Cloutier here as they come up their way through the S's. A little bit to the inside there was Maldonado. That's going to lose him just a little bit of the draft, but it could allow him to time things up absolutely perfectly as they come now onto the backstretch. It looks like Yordi's going to be a little bit too far back to make the move, but he's still going to be trying to apply some pressure here to Cloutier as they run through the bus stop. Not really able to close that gap, I think, as much as he'd like to.
No, not really. Maldonado had a look, though. Wasn't quite close enough. Couldn't get it to come off and is now trying to get it done again. Cloutier is just hoping not for a repeat of what happened the last time. I'd be praying the same thing. And Maldonado, of course, didn't do that on purpose, just overshot the braking zone. You do something like that, it is slightly embarrassing, yes, but you learn a lot when you do it, too. You know exactly where you need to brake next time. Speaking of, these two still fighting over P2. You think Levesque should probably, if Gobi forces the issue, not get in a fight that is a lose-lose situation, and I agree with you.
Well, I agree with that, but the one problem here is the fact that if you're a racer, you want to race, and it's going to be easier said than done to allow a driver on through because your natural instinct is to fight for every last position. Now, the one thing that could be working into Alou Gobi's favor here is the fact that we have started to encounter some lap traffic in the form of Heinemeyer, Jurovic, and Tellez here as they go, so that could change things up a little bit. Levesque here coming down through the 90 right now. That's a good run for Alou Gobi. Little bit wide as they run, but still be able to get to things together.
I knew it was only a matter of time before DJ Clark and myself ventured into racing driver psychology. Folks at home, don't worry, you don't need a degree to understand it. I'll explain it as simply as I can. Racing drivers always want to beat other racing drivers, and if you can see the car in front of you, you think you're better than them and you can catch them, and a lot of times they're right, and that's exactly what's going on for P2 right now. A little psychology from a racing driver perspective for you.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit of that. But one driver who has got a great lock on their head and a great lock on the race itself, that is Brandon Hawken. He's again pulled out about a 7-second advantage on the rest of the field. Here comes Jordi Maldonado, though. Is he going to be able to send the move here on Cloutier and make it stick? It certainly looks like that number 77 has plenty of speed behind the wheel, but it's just a matter of trying to find the area to get on by.
This is really frustrating if you're Maldonado because you have a little bit of extra speed, but taking the defensive line off of every corner is Cloutier. In fact, it may look like Cloutier was surrendering that position on the left-hander, but that's not what he was doing. He was setting up for the right-hander up the hill, and he's done it brilliantly. The number 8 Ferrari, Cloutier back out in front. Will we see a move down here? No, we will not. Maldonado doesn't pull out. 3 minutes left in this race. You're going to have to make a move sooner or later.
Yeah, I think you are. Only about 2.5 minutes left to go. As you said, that's probably going to be 2 laps at the line for these drivers. We take a look at Pierre-Olivier Cloutier. Whoa, getting very close. There was Jordi Maldonado trying to send that move down to the inside through the penultimate corner, but that's not really an area you can get an overtake done. He's now going to back things up there a little bit. Is Jordi Maldonado try to get a better run here through the S's and through up into the inner loop?
Cloutier, of course, trying to hang on to this position, hanging on to hope. Maybe something will happen up in front of them. A position for points and maybe a shot. Oh, a little bit of a slide right there. Will that put Maldonado up into the S's beside him? No, not quite. Just such an excellent job Cloutier has done of defensively driving that car, even though quite clearly it doesn't have quite the grip, nearly tagging the wall at the top of the S's. Will that give Maldonado a run? It sure doesn't look like it.
No, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to do it, but he's still going to be able to keep applying pressure, and one more little slip up like that, and that's going to be all the opportunity Jordi Maldonado needs. Meanwhile, Alou Gobi down through the laces of the boot, keeping the pressure up behind Merrick Levesque as they run down into the toe for the penultimate time.
Wow, what a battle all day long in the 2 races. We've seen Gobi trying to make a chance for themselves to get into the finals, and almost so tangibly close. There will be what might have been from race number 1, but you can't worry about that now. It's all on this race, and it's all about getting by Levesque on the final lap of this race. So very close, yet so very far away. Sievert holding station in 5th, hasn't quite made that pass either. Hawken 8.5 seconds out in front. Let's talk about Hawken for just a brief second as he's going to come down to get the white flag the last lap of the race. What a fantastic job. What a dream Brandon Hawken must feel like they're in. A double win and an automatic bid into the final round. Incredible driving. If I was from the E region, I'd be a little bit concerned about Brandon Hawken right about now.
Oh, I would be as well, Jesse, as really and truly here. Hawken has not only won these 2 races, he has dominated these 2 races. He has put the car in absolutely the right position, not put a tire wrong, and he has absolutely driven the race that he needs to do. He is putting down a statement here, going into the finals of this Ferrari Velas Esports series. This is everything he needed to do. The world knows Brandon Hawken is a name to watch out for.
Yeah, and he's absolutely going to be the number 1 enemy from North America going into the next round, isn't he really? You would have to say 2 wins, perfect races. He also qualified in pole position for both races as well. And wow, just what a run. No pressure, it doesn't look like. Obviously, very focused on what they're doing. Brandon Hawken, a nervous look there a little bit, coming to get the checkered flag. But overall, just an impressive and, dare I say, perfect run.
Exactly. Coming up now through turn 9. Only 2 more corners to go here for Brandon Hawken. Just a little bit of counter steer up as he comes over the crest of that corner. Back down now here through the penultimate turn, bringing it nice and easy. 1 more corner to go for Brandon Hawken in the number 4 black Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo. He brings it across. There you see the fist bump, a smile across the number 4's face, and that is victory number 2 on the day for Brandon Hawken.
Look at this fight coming down to the line. Levesque's going to go all the way down to the pit wall, and that will be just enough to get Levesque that P2 so close. 1.5 tenths back to Gobi. Levesque is definitely going to be through to the next round. Gobi will finish 3rd in the race, and what a brilliant battle it was as we see the rest of the cars filter through and come to the line. Woodrow in 4th. Sievert does get 5th place, and I wonder if that will just be good enough. What an incredible couple of races. Hawken emerges what you have to assume, the number 1 contender from North America, but do not forget about Levesque, and we'll see and check who's the number 3 driver as well. A stout field and some very deserving drivers inside the top 3. Wouldn't you say, DJ?
Very, very deserving drivers all the way up and down this field. It has been an absolutely impressive run, and I am doing the math right now, and I believe that Christopher Sievert will be the 3rd driver, advancing on by a single point. And by a single point, there it is, 25-24. So your 3 drivers that head on in: Brandon Hawken, Merrick Levesque, and Christopher Sievert.
What an incredible group of drivers. Sievert battled all day. Levesque did a fantastic job as well, of course. And Brandon Hawken, what can you say? 2 wins and 2 poles speaks for itself. Ryan Woodrow out of the finals by 1 single point. You know, DJ, we talked about this all champ long. It's very, very close. It was going to come down to it, and it did here by 1 point.
Yes, it certainly did. And for us, that's going to wrap things up for the North American Regional Finals. And with that, back to the studio with Amanda.
Just exceptional racing tonight, and knowing that there was a trip to Italy on the line, I am not surprised one bit of the battles that we saw on track. Paul, Laura, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, the racing was great in both events. And we said at the top of the show, Watkins Glen, Laguna Seca, incredibly difficult tracks to go racing on. And the guys went out there, they raced hard, they, for the most part, raced clean. How difficult is it to deliver knowing that you've got these 2 races to make it through?
It was really amazing racing. Also, it was really, really impressive how Brandon dominated both of the races. And I think he has what it takes to fight for the prize, for the final prize.
And actually, that's a question that I was going to kind of come on to for that one. 2 victories, commanding victories. We've seen him first on the survey, getting the practicing when the other drivers were not there. Coming against European competition, which traditionally is a very strong area of esports sim racing, how do you think he's going to fare, and the other 2 as well that have made it through from North America?
I think it's gonna be a great fight between both North American and European. It's going to be really interesting, and I can wait to see the final race.
And again, 2 tracks, very, very difficult, massively high stakes. Different cars and different simulations as well. It's so hard, isn't it, to turn on the performance. And we saw that. We saw a few mistakes. We saw a bit of controversy as well. But to turn that performance on the world stage as well, it's not an easy task, is it?
Yeah, it is not an easy task. And also you are with a lot of pressure. So you need to really be focused on that. But I think it's just be committed to that.
Well, there we have it. We have a winner tonight, and that is Brandon Hawken. But to all of our competitors tonight, you must be really proud of the skill and all of the action that was displayed tonight. And speaking of proud, I think we might have Brandon on the line with us, Paul.
We do indeed. Brandon Hawken, welcome, regional North American winner. Tell me about it. How does that feel?
Oh, well, thanks for having me, man. It feels great. That was some really great racing throughout the field, and man, I'm just happy to be able to take both of them home. I wasn't quite sure what to expect going in, but had a couple of really great races, and really happy to take home the 2 wins there.
Brandon, I gotta say, I absolutely love the setup you have going there, but you said you took both of them home. That means you swept both Laguna as well as Watkins Glen. What do you think were key in both of those victories?
Getting the pole in qualifying was definitely a really big part. In the first race, I got a really nice launch off the start, and then there was I think there was an incident behind me there on lap 1, and I was able to get me a gap to be able to have a fairly comfortable lead for the remainder of the race, and the rest of it was just kind of trying to not make any mistakes and make it to the line. And in the second race as well, had a really good starting position, and I was able to get the lead going into turn 1, and had a lot of pressure from behind, but fortunately, I was able to hang on and bring home the win in that one. So had a lot of fun. Some really great pressure, especially in the second race from Severt and Levesque, and man, that was a really great time.
Now, obviously, tremendous performance. I want to talk to you a little bit about the preparation and what goes into getting yourself ready to compete at this stage and deliver that kind of result.
So I'm fairly new to a competitive Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione. So I was definitely I didn't quite know what to expect, but like leading up to the race, in the evenings I put an hour or 2 in and just experiment with setups, see what I could get out of the car, and as I got more comfortable, I was starting to feel all right about my chances coming in, and fortunately, the practice paid off, and it felt really good in race pace, and it's just a lot of setup tweaking, a lot of just seeing what I could get out of the car in both sims, it seemed to work out, so it was really good.
Well, I think it worked out fabulous because you're going to be headed to Italy to compete in the final. When you think of that, traveling all the way here, and you talked about pressure, how do you handle that as we head into this big race?
Yeah, you try to just put it at the back of your mind. You just drive, drive like you always have in practice, to the best of your ability. And I know Europeans are known to be really quick, so it's gonna be really tough going into the finals. But gotta just keep doing what I've been doing, and hopefully that's enough, because it's got to be some really stiff competition. But no matter what the outcome is, it's going to be an incredible experience to go to Italy and see the Ferrari headquarters and everything. So I'm just really happy about that, and can't wait to compete against everybody.
Well done, and we can't wait to see you on this side of the pond very soon. Brandon, congratulations.
Thanks so much, everybody.
You absolutely have to love the excitement that you could hear in Brandon's voice, and also the nerves, right? Laura, I know you're about to leave us, but when you think of the nerves as a driver, how do you calm yourself down?
I do some breathing exercises so my heart doesn't go out of my body. But it's not easy to manage all these nerves, but with practice you can do it.
Thank you so much for joining us today for the regional final show. I can't believe we're almost there. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks to you guys.
Well, I absolutely love watching all the racing action tonight. This might be my favorite part of the show. It is time for the prize drawing, Paul. And tonight, up for grabs at a big stake, we have the Ferrari Lego, the 488. We also have the headset, Scuderia Ferrari gaming headset, this t-shirt like I'm wearing, and a Puma backpack that is Ferrari. Paul, how many Paisley button-ups do you think you could get in that backpack?
Ooh, at least 12, at least. Patented by Paul.
Well, let's take a look. The winner tonight is Rob Jones. Congratulations. I can't wait for that pack of awesome Ferrari gear to make it to you. Make sure to take a photo of everything. Show us what you're working with back home. And guys, it is that time of the year where we're going to take back to the studio for the grand final on October 2nd. So make sure to set those calendars. I can't even believe it's already here, Paul. This season has flown by. But in the meantime, social media. Make sure to check us out on the Ferrari Esports channels, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram. That's where you can find all the action as we count down to these grand finals. I'm Amanda Busick. For everyone in studio with us here tonight, it's been a pleasure here in the Scuderia Ferrari studio in Italy. Good night.